my wife's a nut, but she's brilliant. And she said, why don't you use the ear? And I said, get out of here, because I was a little bitter in the ear, because the ear got me in trouble, and I allowed my feelings to get involved. And you know what is funny? When I bit Holyfield's ear, they took $3 million from me. I made more than that taking pictures biting people's ear. Can you believe I was a champ of the world, now I'm the champion cannabis guy?
Tyson 2.0, New York, born in Brownsville. What does it mean to you, launching in New York, in your home state?
Hey, listen, anybody from Brownsville that's able to launch anything is coming up. I'm very grateful to be able to do that. I'm very proud of myself. I'm proud of being from Brownsville and being the person that launched this company. I mean, it's very grateful and proud of myself on that.
And, obviously, launching in New York on well, I guess, being here today on 420, like, what's the significance?
National holiday.
Yeah.
This is the national holiday for stoners.
Do you remember your first time blazing? Like, could you bring me there?
Yes, I'm a young baby, I'm crying, being silly, and my mother's friend lets me smoke it.
Yeah, oh wow.
Yeah.
How old?
I'm probably 8 years old, maybe young, I'm just crying, I'm looking for attention. She said, hey, I'll give him something. My mother was a sex worker, and so there was a lot of stuff going on in the house, and she let me smoke it, and I never stopped.
Could you tell me the mission of Tyson 2.0? What are you guys trying to do?
It's to try to educate everyone that pot is not what it seemed to be in 1936, and that movie, what was that movie?
Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness, yeah.
It is convinced that he is hopelessly and incurably insane, a condition caused by the drug marijuana to which he was addicted.
We've all seen dozens of celebrity brands launch. I mean, Seth Rogen, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, I mean, name them, Lil Wayne. Lots of them don't exist anymore. They're not on the shelf. I attribute that to, one, an incredible team that we have at Tyson 2.0, in addition to the authenticity, the talent, right? Mike uses it daily for his own mental health. Ric Flair, great example. Rick used Xanax for 30 plus years to sleep. He's now finally cleaned off Xanax, just using cannabis to go to sleep. And if it wasn't for Mike introducing him to cannabis, wouldn't be there today.
Did you go out and I want Mike Tyson, I want Ric Flair to do cannabis companies, or did they approach you?
Prior to Tyson 2.0, I worked on the private equity side, investing in dozens and dozens of cannabis brands, just kind of getting my feet wet, understanding the industry, before I was approached by the Tysons and a couple of their largest shareholders, and that's where we co-founded and created Tyson 2.0. Ric Flair came along second, and just developed an incredible relationship with Mike. I mean, it's an authentic friendship. The two of them together is priceless. I mean, such a good time. And Future was one of the last ones, just trying to tap into different demographics, different areas. We continue to focus on bringing in new talent. We have a handful more in the pipeline, so excited about those.
And so how many states are you guys selling cannabis products in?
Active today in 20 plus states. We have Tyson 2.0 products in over 19 countries, including grinders, rolling papers. On the cannabis front, we did just announce and expand with PH Pharma, Germany, UK, Australia, and a couple more that we're working on the pipeline, cultivating out of Macedonia.
Launching in New York this month, what does that mean to the company?
This is huge. It hits home for us. I mean, coming home for Mike Tyson is iconic for us as a brand, as a company as a whole. We just announced the launch of Mike Bites, and real excited to get started on 420.
And the form factor, I love. I think it's really smart. Could you talk about the kind of creation of it and the decision to be this is what we're gonna do?
Well, Mike, his wife, the family had the idea. I thought it was genius when we were sitting in their kitchen, and Mike and her brought it up, Mike and Kiki. We went right to work with it, creating a mold, launched it first in California, and now we've rolled it out across almost all of our markets. We've recently announced the Night Bites. So similar to Mike Bites, but it's done with CBN and THC, so helping you with sleep. They actually knock you out, which is cool.
Being a fighter, being an athlete, what's your relationship with cannabis? Where does that sit in your life as a fighter?
I think every fighter should, every athlete should use it. There was fighter Ricky Williams that he gave up his professional career for cannabis. The Speaker of the House gave up his job. John Bannon, he gave up his career for cannabis. Yeah. Okay, so these two guys are not idiots. They gave up a lot. So what did they give up all that for this? Right. That seems so insignificant. That seems so insignificant for being Speaker of the House, right? Insignificant to be the best running back in the world. I gave that up. Fuck that.
I know you have a fight coming up, but you haven't been in the ring for a while. Like
Last time was 15 years, this is 3 years, so it's not that bad. Pretty much, because right now I'm living my life discipline now. And so I'm at the fight discipline now. Probably 6 weeks I haven't gotten high or had sex.
can you bring me through like your mindset, like why putting aside cannabis for the fight specifically? Like what is in that decision?
It's just discipline. You know, discipline, doing what you love to do, what you love to do, doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. You know, I hate not being able to smoke, but I'm doing it like I love it. I hate not to be able to sleep with my wife, but I'm doing it like I love it.
Right, yeah. And is there something like that cannabis does that you don't want?
No, no, it has nothing to do with it. Because I want it, I won't do it. But you know, that doesn't mean I'm not going to use my toll medicine.
Right, yeah, DMT.
You know, I'm going to use that, no doubt about that. I'm going to stop that.
While we're talking about the ring, you know, your training, like compared to other fights, like what is your training regimen now for the upcoming fight with Paul?
Hey, it's just concentrating. I'm training 3 times a day, and it's just consistent training, health, diet, agility.
What's next for you guys? Like, where do you see Karma and brands like Tyson 2.0 going?
So we continue to expand in tons of new categories. Our cafes and retail, brick and mortar is an exciting one. We opened our second one in Amsterdam. We have 2 coming online in Barcelona. We have a couple under negotiation here in the US, so excited about that.
And it's like a restaurant and smoking lounge? Or
Correct, yeah. So if you go to the one in Amsterdam, you can actually get ear-shaped cakes and chocolates and different products. So same concept, where we'll have different edibles, different products, some infused, some non-infused. Some people want to come in and just experience Mike's Cafe, but in the shape of whether it's a boxing glove, an ear, or following that franchise model, letting people connect with Mike through the Tyson 2.0 coffee shops.
Looking ahead, you know, we're at a point, like the precipice, like legalization may or may not happen. We don't know what the DEA is going to decide. Does that decision matter to you guys? Like,
Absolutely.
Will it help you? Or tell me what you guys are thinking and hoping.
Absolutely. So the rescheduling of cannabis, obviously from 1 to 3 night and day, because that then moves forward with the Safe Banking Act, which just a flood of capital will flow into the industry, game changing. You get investors coming in that may, you know, not touch it otherwise.
No 280E.
Correct, which changes the game completely. The marketing side of it as well. You're able to mass educate, so educating on a much larger scale than we are today because you're so limited on marketing restrictions and such. So moving it from a 1 to a 3 changes all the marketing side, the capital. I mean, and for us, it's game changing. Just the growth opportunity is endless. And eventually that leads to federal legalization, right?
Coming up in New York in the 70s and 80s, like, are you shocked at what's happening, or have you kind of been waiting for decades to see marijuana be normalized?
Well, listen, I'm extremely shocked, but as time goes on, as it went on, I saw it was going, even when people were fighting against it to be legal, I saw it was like a big snowball coming down the mountain, and it was getting bigger and bigger, and soon it's going to run over everybody and stop everybody, and we're just going to all have to give in.
And it's the momentum is
The momentum, yeah, that's what I was trying to express. The momentum is just amazing.
You know, going to psychedelics, we're talking about DMT. Where do you see that in line with cannabis? Do you think that's the next step? Do you think we're going to see a world where psychedelics are FDA-approved medications, or
100%,
where do you see it?
100%. You know, I've heard stories of people who didn't think they had to play, a professional baseball player that was a pitcher didn't think he had to pitch that thing and took some LSD and figured they had to pitch and hit a no-hitter.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, so I just think this is stuff from the universe that makes us better people because it's in our plants, it's in our grass, it's all over the place, in our fruits and our vegetables, all over the place. And God made it, but we just have to figure out where it's at. Yeah, all the medicine's right here, you just gotta find it.
You know, what's next for Tyson 2.0? Where are you gonna take it?
Sky's the limits. Sky's the limits. We just, we're gonna put our thinking hats together. We're gonna conquer the world. We wanna be in every country that's existing. Every country on the planet is gonna have Tyson, Mike buys a Tyson 2.0, some kind of something that's involved with Tyson 2.0 in the country. It's gonna be all over the planet. We want everybody to know our name, know our product, know the product's valuability. It's just it's like a dream come true. I can't even. I thank God every moment of the day. Why did God? Why the universe? Whatever we believe in. Why am I the face of it? Why am I a guy uneducated, Mike Tyson, why am I the face of cannabis or psychedelics? Why me? I don't even know how to spell cannabis and psychedelic. Why am I the face of it? And everybody accepts me as that. And you know how proud I am to know that everybody that's in that street, we got 22 million people in the city, whatever it is, and they know I'm the cannabis king. I'm very grateful for that. Yeah. Great deal of gratitude.
Mike, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And happy 420.
Happy 420.
My first experience with cannabis was in college. I was always under the impression that marijuana was dangerous and this gateway drug and that you were going to ruin your life if you ever touched it. After using it for the first time, it was just really, this is it? I had no problem with people using cannabis, but personally, I didn't think medicinal cannabis was a real thing. I just thought it was an excuse for people to get high and legalize it. Until it happened to me, I didn't know. I think that what we're doing here is amazing and is really the future of cannabis.
In 2018, the federal government legalized hemp and all of its derivatives, isomers, and extracts through the Agricultural Improvement Act. This law has created a hemp products industry that rivals the legal marijuana market. In 2022, hemp sales hit $28 billion, while cannabis sales were $26 billion. Since hemp and marijuana are different varietals of the same plant, Cannabis sativa L, they contain the same compounds, and hemp can be used to make products of similar potencies as those found in state-regulated marijuana dispensaries around the country. Companies like 3Chi use hemp-derived CBD, a non-psychoactive cannabinoid, and convert it into THC, the compound in cannabis known for getting consumers stoned, and infuse it into edibles and vapes. So long as each product is made from hemp, defined as cannabis that contains 0.3% of delta-9 THC or less, the products are technically legal at the federal level.
3Chi is a cannabinoid research and development lab. We're also a product manufacturer and a product distributor. 3Chi is in the hemp industry, and that differs from the marijuana industry in the sense that hemp is federally legal and marijuana is federally illegal, which provides us a lot of benefits over the marijuana industry in that we can ship interstate, we can advertise, and we can run our businesses more similar to a normal company than marijuana can. I started 3Chi to really pay forward what cannabis did for me. I'm a biochemist. I enjoy science and I love using that, and I had been formulating products and using my science degree for that for a while. I had gone to a cannabis conference out in Portland because I had a lip balm company that was taking off, and it was a flavored lip balm that people were loving so much. They were eating it off their lips so fast they said, hey, turn this into an edible, and I didn't know what that meant. While I was out there, I was trying to find the THC to put in this stuff and couldn't find it. Nobody would sell it to me. So somebody told me, hey, you can just take hemp distillate and try that. And by the way, you should try this for your shoulder. And I had had debilitating shoulder pain for about 3 years up to that point where I gradually lost the use of my right arm almost completely. I made myself a tincture and I made myself a pain rub. And I had tried everything else before this, right, outside of surgery. And within a week of using it, I had to use my right arm back. Here at 3Chi, we make oils, edibles, vapes, tinctures, concentrates, and soon we hope to be selling flower. The oil is the starting point for these products. So those are the cannabinoids. A cannabinoid is the primary active ingredient in cannabis. When you're using cannabis and you're feeling the effects, that is the cannabinoids at work. I started 3Chi with the intent of really chasing those minor cannabinoids, and what we did was laid the foundation for the industry as it exists today. We were the first ones to put minor cannabinoids into hemp-derived products and really offer those and really build that out. And at the time, we saw really people were only focused on two cannabinoids. In the marijuana industry, it was delta-9 THC. In the hemp industry, it was CBD. But in the research, we found that there was over 100 different cannabinoids. I just looked at and thought that was a major miss, and that there was so much potential because of what we're seeing, the power of CBD and the power of delta-9 THC. There had to be good things in those other cannabinoids. Maybe they've been made in a lab like in 1940 and just to make it, but to make it, at a scaled level where it's purified and then to begin to understand what the effects actually are, I mean, that's new territory. We're breaking new ground, and it's just an incredibly exciting and awesome thing to be a part of. One of the advantages of hemp over, what's been done in marijuana is that we can take all these minor cannabinoids and we can create these blends that don't exist in nature, and we can actually take the full potential of the plant and realize it. There's a whole spectrum of feelings that you can provide with these different cannabinoids. So really, it's limitless in terms of what we can do. And people use the plant for so many different things, whether it is pain, anxiety, anything with mood, even if it's just stress relief. Stress is one of the biggest contributors to medical problems that exists, so I would argue that almost all use of cannabis has some medicinal quality to it. This is the final stage of making the finished oil. From here, we can put that oil into gummies or vapes or other kinds of products, but this is where the finished concentrate form of Delta-8 is created. So here's our GC testing machine, one of them. We use this to just ensure that we have exactly what we want in our oils before they go into the manufacturing process. So we want to make sure that all the solvents are out. We want to make sure that the cannabinoids are correct. I would be surprised if any other company tests their products throughout the process as much as we do. In addition to that, we've invested in the personnel to create new testing methods for all of the different cannabinoids that we work with. I think the term red state weed is typically maybe meant as a derogatory term, as if hemp is something less than marijuana. It's a very ignorant statement. It shows that you don't know, the difference between what's really going on in the hemp industry and what's really going on in the marijuana industry. We've talked about 100 plus cannabinoids being in the plant. Well, marijuana's had access to the same plant for almost 30 years now, and they're still a one-trick pony. It's almost comical. I mean, here is what marijuana can do with the plant right now. Here is what I can do. Anybody who is saying that what we can offer is somehow less than marijuana just doesn't know what they're talking about. In some of these states that have marijuana, where marijuana is legal, they've taken away the hemp program primarily, and they've said, okay, well, everything goes into the marijuana industry, and what ends up happening is they don't do anything with these other cannabinoids, and so it just sits there, and it's that one-trick pony of just delta-9 THC served up a bunch of different ways. But the problem is, not everybody wants the effects of delta-9 THC. Those work for some people. Delta-9 THC is an answer for some people, but it's not everybody. Delta-8 THC, being less potent and more functional, less heady, allows a lot of people to get things done that they can't do on marijuana. Really, our products are popular anywhere they're allowed to be. And at the end of the day, that's just because not everybody wants marijuana.
Just days ago, the president signed the 2018 Farm Bill, a massive piece of legislation that legalizes industrial hemp.
Not everyone in the cannabis industry appreciates the ingenuity of entrepreneurs like Jernay. And marijuana lobbyists, many politicians, law enforcement, and state-licensed weed companies describe the federal legality of hemp-derived cannabinoids as an unintended loophole. In late March, 21 state attorneys general, including Indiana's Todd Rokita, whom 3Chi is suing over his opinion that THC chemically derived from hemp is illegal, sent a letter to members of Congress asking them to remove the protections of hemp-derived cannabinoids from the Farm Bill the next time it is reauthorized.
The 2018 Farm Bill is what opened up this entire industry. It allowed for hemp to be sold and hemp-derived products to be sold federally across state lines and without concern for the Controlled Substances Act. These products are legal in Indiana, and so we've worked with the government for the last 4 or 5 years. We've had politicians out to our facility and walked them through and been very open with the state in terms of what we do and why it's not something to fear. At the end of the day, a lot of people are still controlled by that reefer madness propaganda that they grew up with, and it's especially strong in a state like Indiana. What we've been trying to get passed in Indiana for the last 4 years is a bill that puts regulations and guardrails on this industry. We've been trying to get it to a point where it's 21 and up everywhere you go, and just make it safer for people. We wanted testing. We want flower to be available again, because currently it's not. That was taken away. And we really just want the same level of opportunity that other states have. So I think there is going to be a change in administration coming up here, and hopefully, some change in attitudes follow.
And a lot of talk about this on the campaign trail. The Drug Enforcement Administration now moving to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III substance. That means the drug could be used potentially for some medicinal purposes. A lot of questions have been popping up about that since the announcement yesterday.
Anybody who's an opponent to our industry needs to first understand that the illicit market is full-fledged and has been going for almost 100 years. It's a big business, and it is in your town. But the thing is that the illicit market doesn't care about your safety. We're professionals, we're scientists, we're regulated, we're safe at the end of the day, and we are incentivized to provide a perfect, safe product to you. There's a lot of fear-mongering about this industry that just isn't true. And so we're just trying to get the word out that, hey, these are incredibly safe products. We're completely legit organizations. We have safety standards, we have regulations, we have legitimate scientists working at our facility and creating these products. What was a civil war is really starting to not become one as much with a large number of the marijuana companies. Really where you still have the fight are the larger marijuana companies who really thrive on a monopolistic type of environment. Those are the people that we're still fighting against. Everybody else has kind of realized, this is the future of the industry and we need to be a part of it. I actually think that marijuana becoming legal federally is a great thing for us. And again, we have such a head start on the marijuana industry in terms of what we can do with this plant. It just gives us more weapons to work with, really, and more options to do what we're already doing. The one thing I hope is that if they end up making it federally legal, they don't put some crazy taxes and restrictions on it like they've done in states like California and Illinois, and really hinder the ability for this industry to grow like any normal industry should be able to grow. We've just seen so many states get it wrong that you just hope that that doesn't trickle up to the federal level. One of the major things that comes with marijuana legalization is the study of this plant and the realization of what it offers. And once people start to realize that, it's going to be a good thing for humanity in general. We have people all the time telling us that they're coming off 20 pills. They don't have the side effects now. They were able to replace a prescription with a gummy. It's wonderful. And legalization is just going to make that ramp and accelerate. So the future for 3Chi is really, first we want to complete this process of exploring the entire plant and nailing down all these different cannabinoids and purifying those, and then really taking the blends that we make with those cannabinoids and starting to really get good, hard clinical research around those products, and in terms of making them the most effective products as possible for the myriad of reasons that people use cannabis.
In late May, the U.S. House Committee on Agriculture voted to approve an amendment that would ban intoxicating hemp-derived and synthesized cannabinoid products, which has been added to the 2024 Farm Bill draft. The amendment also reformulates the definition of hemp, distinguishing between two categories: hemp grown for cannabinoid extraction, and industrial hemp used for non-cannabinoid purposes. The 2024 Farm Bill draft is still in its early stages, and the Senate has yet to release its own full version. The future of intoxicating hemp-derived and synthesized cannabinoid products is uncertain.
I was in New York City, but I lived in Jersey. And when I went home into Jersey and I popped into a local liquor store, I realized that that same bottle that I was seeing on a liquor store shelf in Manhattan for $300 was $150 in Jersey. And I was like, wait a second, there's a real disconnect here if I can drive over a bridge and pay half the price. Whiskey and alcohol distribution in general is really, really siloed, state by state, country by country, and there's no transparency in the market to figure out what you should be paying, what the real market price is, and what other people are willing to pay for bottles that they can't get their hands on. So Baxis really came to be as a way to bridge that gap, to create transparency in the market and access so people anywhere in the world could buy and trade bottles that they might not have readily available to them. Baxis is a secure vaulting platform and marketplace. And so what that means is people send us their personal collections. And these are bottles that could be new releases, and these are bottles that in some cases are from the 1800s and early 1900s. We provide temperature-controlled insured storage and vaulting solutions. And then those bottles go into their account. So users access a dashboard where they can see the bottles that they have in their account, interesting information about the bottles, historical information, and then the most important part for a lot of them is that they can actually track the prices. And so we provide all of the auction data, secondary pricing data that we can gather in a chart for them to track the values and then allow them to list their bottles for sale directly. What we found, and kind of our little joke, but our real growth hack is not going to the whiskey collectors, but we go to their significant others and we're like, hey, so what if you could get free storage and insurance for all of the stuff taking up your house? And 2 days later, we get a call, yeah, my wife would like these 300 bottles out of my house by tomorrow. For anyone looking for, you know, a growth hack in the collectible space, let me tell you, go to the spouses, not the collectors. One of the issues with auction houses, which I've used in the past, is you'll send in your bottles, it'll take a couple of weeks, then they run the auction for a couple of weeks, then it takes them a couple of weeks to collect the funds, and by the time they're done with everything, it's 2-3 months between when you sent in your bottle and when you get paid. And that drives a lot of people to gray markets that exist, private groups where there's a lot of fraud because you don't have that layer of security. And so what we wanted to do was create that instantaneity of it, allow you to buy more things, allow you to sell more things. We do a 360-degree scan of every bottle at Baxis, and the reason for this is multifold. One is the authentication process and being able to run computer vision models to double check on the authenticity. But the other one is that when you're buying something rare and collectible, the condition matters. Trading cards get sent to PSA or CGC for grading. That doesn't exist for whiskey. So I want to make sure, is the label in pristine condition? Is it ripped? Is the tack strip torn? How does the liquid look inside? And so all of that is really important to the buyer. And even when you're using websites or liquor store websites, they're usually using stock images. And so you don't know if you're getting the exact bottle that they're telling you about. Sometimes they might even get the addition or something wrong because the store owner doesn't know. And most brands actually reuse UPC codes. So you'll actually scan a barcode and it'll come up as the exact same as last year's edition. They don't change it for year to year. So a guy who works in the store doesn't even know. When we first launched, NFTs were at their absolute height. So people are talking Bored Apes and JPEGs and all that. And we're like, guys, this is great technology, but like you're missing what it can be used for. What was really important for us with Baxis was building both for the future, as well as the interoperability that blockchain provided and the security. So when you trade someone a token, they own that bottle now and they can redeem and ship that bottle. And if you're a blockchain user, if you're in Web3, if you understand it, there are so many things you can do. The other day, somebody traded a bottle of whiskey that was stored in Baxis's vault, because they're all tokenized, for a Magic the Gathering card that was tokenized in somebody else's vault. That's what this unlocks, is that in the future, all of these different blockchain protocols can now fit in with your whiskey collection. No one cares about what web services platform Netflix is hosted on. They care that they can click a button and watch a movie. Our users are not going to care how we build it, they just care that it works. Our core user, the people that we really wanted to appeal to, was whiskey lovers, was collectors, and not just whiskey, but spirits and wine in general. And so we need to bring it to where they were at. And for most of them, they're familiar and they're comfortable with a website, they can log in with an email, they can pay with a credit card. And so all of those are things that we put really at the forefront of Baxis. You can use crypto if you want to, but you don't have to know anything about it. I had built and run small businesses that I had built up, but it's very different than trying to build a venture grade enterprise. So it was tough at the beginning to get kind of that interest, I would say, even from like VCs, where like they understood the idea of like what they're calling real world assets or RWAs, but they didn't know much about the whiskey markets or the spirits markets or the wine market and understand how large they were. We kind of had this opportunity to try and fail a lot, at a small scale, leading into the end of 2022 when FTX collapsed, and we were like, no, we're like heads down focused on building for the whiskey community, building for the spirits community. And so that bear market didn't really affect us. If anything, it made us stronger because when it started to ease up, people are like, wait, these guys are still around. 2023, when we launched the marketplace, we started to get that momentum. We expected people would send in a couple of bottles here and there, but we started to get real collections. We had a substantial amount of trading going on. Whiskey collectors were raving about the platform because they're like, wait, these are bottles I've been looking for. It's an ability for me to sell. And that really took off and caught some VC attention. And so we ended up raising our seed round and really just been scaling ever since. The nice thing about SaaS companies is as long as you have a computer and an internet connection, you can run your company. For us, we need physical space to store the bottles. So we are opening actually our second vault now in Jersey. We're going to be opening a couple more in the US at the end of this year, and then one overseas, our first overseas vault, and scaling both the physical infrastructure globally to add more users, as well as the engineering support on the back end to be able to really deliver, features and products to those users. There's this disconnect between brands and consumers. A distillery will sell their bottles to a distributor who sells their bottles to a liquor store who sells their bottles to you, who sells the bottles to me, who sells the bottles to someone else. And so by the time it gets to the end consumer, the brand has no idea who their biggest fans actually are. We can say there is an account that has 50 of your bottles. And so being able to connect and show brands, first of all, here's how you can really connect with your consumers, which we've already done with a couple of brands, and they've loved it because we did a private barrel pick down at Wild Turkey. And so we went into the database and we found the two largest collectors of single barrel Russell's Reserves, like Wild Turkey's product. And we brought two users down who have each of them over 50 or 60 bottles of like single barrel Russell's Reserve. And they had never met anyone from the brand. They loved the product, they loved the brand, and they got to pick that barrel with us themselves with Bruce Russell. And like, they were huge fans before, but now they're lifelong fans. And that's really special also because there is such a social and a nostalgia element tied into whiskey and into spirits. It's what did you see your dad drinking? What did you see your grandfather drinking? What was your mother drinking? And so that kind of shapes the way that people perceive alcohol. And so building those like real connections and not just making people think of them as large companies is really cool and really special because the people who work in the distilleries and in the brands really care. They're really passionate. What's cool about the blockchain element is because each of the bottles is scanned, and this was something else that really motivated me, and it lives permanently on the blockchain, we now have this digital encyclopedia and this digital archive, because the thing about whiskey is it's so finite. So a single barrel, an old release, once they're gone, they're gone. They're gone from the face of the earth. They can never recreate the 1976 Jack Daniels, which might have just been to most people a regular Jack Daniels in the 70s, but now sells for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars because there are just so few of them left, and the whiskey is genuinely different. And so, yes, it's sad to see them go, but it's also great knowing that they're actually getting consumed because as a whiskey lover, like I want to sit around with my friends and my family and enjoy like a little piece of history. And so it makes me happy knowing that somebody's doing that, but it makes me happier knowing that even if those bottles vanish off the face of the earth, that there will be a permanent digital archive so that if somebody does stumble across one of these bottles in 50 or 100 years from now, all of the information that they'll need will be stored on-chain because of access.
Hi, I'm Will Yakowitz. I'm a senior writer here at Forbes magazine. I'm with Christian Angermeyer, who runs the Pyron Investment Group. Christian, great to see you.
Thanks for having me. A pleasure.
Absolutely. So I want to start with enhanced games. It's a fascinating concept, and I know you and Aaron D'Souza co-founded it, and yeah, you can kind of just tell us what it is.
Well, you almost said it, like winning. It's a modern take on the Olympics, which we all know, which just happened. But the big difference is that performance-enhancing drugs, colloquially called doping, is kind of not just allowed, but also endorsed. So we want to showcase what the human body can do with the scientific help of medically approved performance-enhancing drugs.
And what is the, I guess why, simply, why should enhanced games exist and what are you guys trying to achieve?
Many reasons. First of all, I love sports like many people do. So in generally, like I would say, creating a new sports franchise was always one of my dreams on the bucket list. Second reason is if you look at the Olympics, it's actually highly unfair what's happening because people do dope. And in the Olympics, obviously, that is kind of cheating because they do it in the darks, they do it, not officially. The crazy number, by the way, not from us, but from WADA, sort of the anti-doping agency, is that round about 44, I think is the number, percentage of track and field athletes at a certain point in their career use performance-enhancing drugs.
Wow.
So a good portion of the people in the Olympics have either used it before to prepare, or maybe even used it during the Olympics.
Right.
And that is highly unfair. So this was the third point is the Olympics are extremely unfair when it comes to pay. So they make billions every event, and they give practically zero to the athletes. I'm not just talking that they give them zero money. Even if you go into the headlines some weeks ago, the whole sort of the living, what they provide, the food, like people complain about it. It's like these athletes are your asset. They are the most important people. By the way, in many other sports franchises, it is positively done the right way. Like if you look at soccer, if you look at any form of sports, the top athletes are paid really well because they are the main guys. So we want to create a track and field Olympic style sports event where the athletes are in the center, not just of attention, but also really get the financial reward they deserve.
Right.
So many reasons to do it, but short version, it's going to be fucking cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, speaking of money, how much are these athletes going to make, or what's the potential?
So we're just designing the details. So the first event going to be end of next year.
Okay.
We already said that we want to give a prize money per category, and we want to start with 10 categories of $1 million for breaking a world record.
Wow, okay.
Then we will have a lower prize money for winning gold, and we also think about taking a certain part of our revenues and attaching it to the social media engagement of every athlete, so that practically, even if you're not winning gold, but if you're one of the fan favorites, and if you are driving engagement and attention to the enhanced games, you should also be rewarded. So we're just coming up with the details, but these are going to be the three pillars. They're going to be a high reward money, prize money for breaking a world record. They're going to be another pot of money for gold, silver, bronze, and then they're going to be a social media kind of engagement reward.
Right. Wow. So $1 million for breaking a world record. And what sports are you starting with?
Starting with we have still 2-3 sort of categories we want to finalize because we're just going actually through the application process. We have more than 1,000 professional athletes. I think it's even 1,500 who have applied. By the way, some of them, actually not little, were in the summer games. Doesn't mean they were doing doping in the summer games, but at least they're willing from now on to use performance enhancing drugs. So it's going to be like swimming, running, all the track and field, all the very obvious one where we're not going to do archery. So stuff like that.
Nice. And, obviously steroids and other performance enhancing drugs are forbidden in the sports world.
So we do have rules. So first of all, by the way, when people ask me, isn't that illegal? I want to clarify the terms. So at the moment, performance enhancing drugs, colloquially called doping, in the Olympics are excluded by the Olympics as a private organization.
Right.
So it's literally like you and I start a club and we're like, we don't like Diet Coke in the club. We can make rules because it's our own event, but that does not mean people always use that word wrong. It's performance enhancing drugs, at least most of them are not illegal as long as they medically approved products.
Right.
So what we are doing, we have actually 3 rules. Rule number 1, most important one, medically approved drugs only. We at Apeiron, one of our core sort of pillars or core investment themes is biotech, and I just believe in science, and FDA approved drug is sort of the gold standard globally for how you prove something is both something both works and has sort of little enough, because anything has side effects, but actually has hopefully little side effects, but we also know all the side effects. So an FDA-approved drug, we have all the transparency we need. So that is one rule, medically approved medications, drugs only. Second, which obviously goes hand in hand, you have to have a doctor who's prescribing it to you. So we want somebody who publicly says, I'm the doctor for this person. Yeah, I'm responsible, means also I'm responsible that this is done responsibly.
Right.
So you have to have a doctor who sort of takes the responsibility, most likely even publicly. And third one, which is maybe the most important one, we're gonna do a health screening before every single event. And we do not allow any side effects which are dangerous. So most performance enhancing drugs, if you look at the hard science, are very low risk. People throw out the word risk, but nobody defines it. Yeah, and a good friend of mine, who is one of the most genius neuroscientists of our time, Professor David Nutt, he I think it's 10 years ago, even longer, he defined for the first time what is the risk of taking a drug. And he looked at all the both medically approved drugs and illegal drugs and non-classified like alcohol.
Yeah.
And he made a very, very comprehensive risk score. Practically, can you die when you take it? Can you have damage? Is the damage irreversibly? And so on. I think it's like, I don't know, 15 or whatever of certain parameters. And then he created a risk score. And then why this is so important is practically that can guide a lot of discussions we're going to have today about drugs, medical drugs, recreational drugs, hopefully recreational drugs, which soon become medically used, whatever. Because if you look at performance enhancing drugs, steroids, one of them, there's some other categories, they are, if taken properly with medical guidance, they are at very low risk. Infinitive less risk than alcohol or anything we all do the whole day, if properly taken. We gonna tell our athletes and their doctors, do it responsible, do it in the medical framework, yeah, then they have very low risk. But if you exaggerate, if you take too much, whatever, we're gonna see it because the side effects, and mostly for steroids, for example, the side effects are around the heart, yeah, and they're visible. So we tell everybody, if you prepare for a year and then show up and have a heart damage, you're not gonna start. So we're gonna be, and that is maybe another point where athletes love us, we're gonna be the most healthy and safe, because there's, by the way, the Olympics did crazy statements, which by the way shows, there I'm a little bit critical, that they know nothing about science. Oh, some of the Olympics commissioners, I think Lord Coe, or how I spell his name, big shout out, because I really think he's an idiot. I have to say it, because like it's so unscientific, somebody's gonna die. I was like, no, we're gonna be much safer than the Olympics, because if we test everybody, yeah, they will, we put a limit on what they're doing, yeah, but also, like if they did it, if the Olympics did test everybody, they would have less incidents. So the question is, by the way, why are they not doing it?
Yeah. Yeah, and do you know the answer?
Well, I think because they're very thrifty, they don't spend, it's gonna be expensive. Like, yeah, we're gonna have a full team of doctors with the best equipment, whatever, to make a health check. You could do it, it's just expensive. But again, I think the athletes are totally worth it. They are our sort of main partners in it. But and second, I believe the Olympics are terribly afraid of showing that most of them, yeah, or at least some of them do something. And so I think they don't want to look at it. And why do they do that? I think because they don't want to lose their narrative of we are the clean ones, but also, by the way, again, the Olympics in France were like a gift for us, like because so many things went wrong, and there were so many discussions about China, whatever. There were so many. It's such a political thing, and we don't want to be political. It's very simple. These are the rules. We're gonna test it. Everybody's tested the same way. There's no like gray zones, no leeways, and whatever.
Right. And speaking of kind of politics and countries, like it's not going to be nationalistic, right?
Well, it's just like the best athletes, full stop.
Right. And one more question before we move on. But, obviously you're an investor and this is a venture-backed business. Can you kind of talk about the economics? Like, what do you see as the return? Like, is this going to be ticket sales? Are you selling? Is this going to be like a live Netflix thing? Like,
So ticket sales, even in the sort of other sports, is not the biggest driver. So in the core, we are a sports franchise like any other, where the two main drivers are sponsoring and TV rights, so in general, media rights. We were completely blown away from the response from these two groups, both from sponsors and from media outlets. But if you had asked me like a year ago when we started planning it, I would have said, I'm prepared to have 3 years of uphill battle where we're doing great events, but maybe the big brands are not gonna sponsor us. The big whatever,
not gonna be
the Nikes of the world, the big media outlets are not gonna touch us because it's gonna be controversial. But I went way quicker than I thought. Really, you tell me, and obviously everybody can judge for themselves, but my feeling is that this was way less of an uphill battle in the public perception. Some people are critical, and by the way, I like it when people are critical because I want to be controversial, because being controversial is actually driving engagement. Right. Yeah, but it's way less than I thought. And sometimes I cynically or funnily say I'm almost worried that it's already too much of zeitgeist and we're missing a little bit the public debate around it, because I want it. But also, we got contacted by every single big media outlet, TV stations, streamers, online stuff. We got contacted by many big brands who want to be partners. But the second part is, we're gonna ask our athletes to share their biodata with us. And because obviously it's transparent, they have no reason not. This goes from wearables they can wear to blood tests, whatever. And obviously tell us what they own, what they are on, because they have no reason to be afraid. That will give us over time the biggest database for performance enhancing drugs, which is incredibly valuable for any form of new drug development and any form of science. So actually, aside of the sports company, we're also going to be a big science company in partnership, and we're going to announce the first partnership soon, in partnerships with biotech pharma companies to develop new performance enhancing drugs. And this is not just relevant for sports, because talking about one of my other big passions, longevity, or in generally combating sort of aging, is very close to performance enhancing. So in terms of science, in terms of medications you're taking. So it's not just about finding new medications and performance enhancers for sports guys, it's gonna be stuff which gonna profit really everybody in the world, because obviously aging is a problem for all of us.
I do want to talk about psychedelics and your company Atai, and how you invested in Compass. You're kind of a self-described teetotaler, like you aren't a big drinker or smoker or, doing psychedelics. How did you get into psychedelics, and how did a kid from a German village start a psychedelics company?
I realized fairly early, in my teens, that I'm always fairly happy. Doesn't mean, by the way, people, they always artificially have bad days, everybody has. But overall, I have I think life is awesome. I'm happy with myself. And at the same time, I think I'm not dumb. So I always said something in my brain is right. Both from a happiness perspective and from a intellectual perspective. So I don't want to jinx it. So that was my complete mantra my whole life, and still is. Let's not put anything in my body which sort of can ruin that good thing. So that's why I never drank alcohol. That's why I never tried cannabis. I never tried cocaine. I never did anything. And then actually multiple stories coming together. And I do believe a little bit, I'm very spiritual. I believe in fate, so to say. I think something was pushing me towards psychedelics. First of all, there were two very good friends who told me 2-3 years already about it. They kind of hippie, so they did it regularly. And they sort of started telling me, by the way, we're talking now about 2014. So a time when psychedelics were not a part of the public conversation at all. Full stop. It was not there. So they told me about psychedelics. I was always saying, no, thank you. No, I'm not doing that. But I was interested. Then I met a scientist at a dinner, actually not just a scientist, one of the most famous neuroscientists in Germany. And he told me about psychedelics and that he's still working with them, which, by the way, never stopped. So the science around psychedelics was never stopping. It was just a career killer, so not a lot of people did it.
Right.
Yeah, but now it's a career booster. And then I was in this one moment in the Caribbean with these two friends. They said again, they're doing a mushroom trip. It was 2014. And I was like, you know what, I want to try it. So, and by the way, that was before I ever zipped on alcohol. Technically, it was the first ever substance I've ever done. And I could talk hours about that alone, but the short version is it was hands down the single most meaningful, deep, important thing, adding even to my already existing level of happiness I've ever done in my whole life.
Wow.
And because we're in biotech, I came out of that trip the next day. I was thinking about it. It was like, holy shit, if it's doing this amount of positivity to me as a happy, healthy person, I can totally see how it can do actually, which was completely forgotten, but which we had actually scientifically proven in the 50s and 60s, how these substances can actually maybe even cure, but at least dramatically improve mental health issues like depression, anxiety, addiction, and whatsoever. And that was the moment when I emotionally decided I want to bring these substances back. And I'm very proud because like nobody, again, this was not like a trend or whatever. It was like, there was actually for 3 years then, from 2014 to 2016, 17, every single person I told about that idea said you're completely insane. By the way, I did some daring things in my life, even now in Hans Games, whatever, but the sort of amount of advice not to do it I got for psychedelics was insane. From head of states who said, no, you're our advisor, no, to fellow investors who said, okay, people will not, whatever, trust you anymore, to journalists, to lawyers, to like my colleagues, like everybody said it's a very bad idea. But I believe obviously so much in these substances that I was really following it. And now comes the point, like a little bit of an emotional story and maybe also a little bit of a spiritual one, because I had a trip like at the end of 2016, in a holiday in a country where it's legal, literally 2 days before New Year's Eve. And for the ones who haven't read about psychedelics, whatever, like the short version is you gain insights. That I think is the neutral we can talk about. But like, and by the way, in a mental health context, if people have depression, anxiety, whatever, it helps them to rearrange their view on them because they gain insights how to deal with them, whatever. So, but in my case, that message, if you want to call it like that, in this trip was, you know that these are good substances. Just go out and talk about it to people, on TV, wherever you can. So literally the mission was, and I'm very proud, this was 2016, I have done it since then every single time. In every meeting, I always bring it up. There's not a single meeting, whatever the meeting is about, with whomever it is, at least I want to mention psychedelics. And the message was, it's just going to be good for you. And I flew from that holiday trip to New York, January 2017. And the first meeting of the year I had with Mike Novogratz, big shout out. And I went into his office, and I will never forget that because I was like kind of nervous, although Mike is a good friend, because in my head I need to now do that, like from now on in every meeting again. And I cannot emphasize it long enough for me how different the time was, because now like there's not a single dinner I'm not going where people anyway, even if they don't know me, talk about psychedelics.
It's a mainstream
It's the mainstream
topic
but
now,
back then, no, zero. And I go into Mike's office, was a little bit nervous, and he was like, hey, what's up? Like, I was like, let's talk about psychedelics. I just had a trip, whatever. And Mike was fascinated and he said, hey, I think he said he'd done it like 20 years ago in college. But like, it wasn't, he was like, no, nothing about it. Tell me about it. And then I leave his office, and the next morning he calls me, and he started the call with, this cannot be a coincidence. He said he hadn't talked about psychedelics literally for 20 years. And he said, you sit in my office yesterday and bring up this strange topic. And the next morning, his sister, who runs TED conference, called him. She was on a yoga retreat in Bali. And there was a couple in the yoga retreat who told her that they're working on bringing psilocybin, one psychedelic, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, back for the treatment of mental health issues. But nobody wants to fund them because everybody thinks they're crazy. And Mike was like, they live in London, you two should meet. I was like, sure. I met them in February 2017. The meeting took an hour. I said, look, I'm your financial backer. Yeah, and we started Compass Pathways together, which is now a listed company and is focusing on psilocybin, which is what I have on my arm here, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. And then I discovered it. I thought about it, like there are more psychedelics, like DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, ibogaine. Some would say ketamine and MDMA are psychedelics. They're not, but like they adjacent to that world. And Compass always wanted to focus on psilocybin only.
Right.
So I started a second company called Atai, also stock market listed now, which is doing literally all the other psychedelics and owns my stake in Compass Pathways, where we're still the largest investor.
Yeah, cool. And you helped Compass raise funds for you, Mike, and Peter Thiel.
That was the first round. Yeah, obviously I took Mike in because he made me the intro.
Sure.
Yeah, I had talked to Peter about psychedelics. He was intrigued. So these were my two sort of co-investors in the first round. Yeah.
Right. And, obviously, speaking of psychedelics and, drugs related to MDMA, obviously got like a recent big blow from the FDA. They rejected their application and said, how do you think that'll affect the world of psychedelics in the future of, potential turning these molecules into potential medicines?
It's sad because it delays MDMA, but I want to make clear, because I know, like, again, the media shortened it and was like, oh, it's a blow for psychedelics. It's not. Like, unfortunately, the company who did the trials did it in kind of a messy way. I know it's like, because like, I really feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
So I don't want to criticize too much, but like, if you look at them, just one fact, like their phase 3, in biotech, you have phase 1, phase 2, they normally have 2 phase 3, and then hopefully, if it holds what you assume, then you have approval. So their phase 3 trial was roundabout as big as our psilocybin phase 2 trial. So they really did the minimal version because they didn't have a lot of money. And while it's sad, but I always acknowledged when we started Compass and Atai that it is a controversial topic. I think for no reason. I think it shouldn't be controversial, but I need to accept where we are.
Yeah.
So
they're currently illegal drugs.
Yeah. So my message to my colleagues, which both Atai and Compass did wonderfully, was like, as little as I like spending too much money, as an investor, I'm very like frugal. But in this case, we cannot save like in the wrong place. Like, we will be up for critique. Yeah, there will be people who, for whatever reason, will poke into our trials. Like, so we need to be gold standard in any form, like in the size. Like, size means how many patients you include, how you design it, how you think about it, in everything. Like, unfortunately, the company who did MDMA did the opposite. They did the smallest possible legally trial. Yeah. And then, I don't want to go into details, it's all online, from mistakes to, I think, a little bit like fake data. And so what I want to say is, because it's important, like, the FDA had to reject it. Yeah. And not because MDMA is bad, like, but if you have a bad data set for a good drug, a bad executed data set, they cannot say, oh, because we think it's a good drug, we give you a pass. Like, that is unfortunately, it's not how it works in science. Like, you need to do your work. Yeah. So, but it has nothing, if at all, it's showing that our approach, which was always gold standard, raising a lot of money, doing it for profit, by the way, like, having stock market listed companies, whatever, is the right approach. Second, a little bit like the silver lining, like, because I unfortunately think it's called original, it's called racemic MDMA, will never see the approval now, because they lost years and they would need to raise so much money. And then also the company who did it was very anti-capitalistic, which I always thought was stupid, because I think, don't need to that Forbes, but like, capitalism is the way to go. You raise money, like, that's so they never did patents. So they always believed in no patents, whatever. So it's going to be very hard, I think, to bring MDMA racemic back, but we have a novel version of MDMA in the Atai portfolio. It's called rMDMA.
It's like R-ketamine, where it's
exactly. It's a different isomer. So we have full patent protection on it. We have great data. We now decided, because I think patients deserve it, MDMA is a valuable, potential valuable treatment for especially post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of veterans have, whatever, we decided to really fast-track our MDMA so that hopefully we're going to succeed soon.
Right. And, looking at a future where these medications might be FDA approved, like what kind of future are we looking at? Do you go to the pharmacy to get these drugs, or are they like therapist combination?
Very good point. Yeah. So I believe these drugs are extremely valuable. I believe they shouldn't be legal. I believe they should be available, but in a guided context.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Like, not just medically approved, that's the baseline, but we actually applying for that category where you cannot take it alone because they're very strong and you go on a very deep experience, which I would say, again, I'm always careful because we're in the approval process. Hopefully, we finish it soon, but like it always at least helps people. But especially when you do it for a medical reason, depression, for example, the trip or the experience in itself can be rocky. And you need to have somebody next to you who gives you guidance, makes sense, and really literally guides you through the experience. So we don't want to make it prescription drugs, which you can take home, but we want people to be at the doctor, do it with them, and then go home. So but it's not an overnight stay. It's just how you call it, inpatient, like 2 hours, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, to take one question already today. So a lot of people over the last years, and hopefully now finally with MDMA, that showed that I really like not just the right, but also have the right intention, said, oh, Christian is saying all of that, because there were people who said, oh, if you are doing it in your holiday, which is true, by the way. So I want to address it openly, that obviously I'm doing it. There are countries in the world, they just don't classify it. So it's neither actively legal or not legal, it's just not classified. So, but people always like, if you do it in your holiday and enjoy it so much and it gives you so much, why are you not advocating globally that it should be like cannabis, sold everywhere, available everywhere? I said there's many reasons. The one is like, because I don't do it alone. Like I do it with friends, but friends who are educated, who know what they're doing. One is actually a therapist. Like sort of, I do it in a proper setting. I have people minding me. Second, I'm not doing it for a medical reason, so I totally acknowledge that people who do it for medical reasons might have much more rocky trips, good ones at the end, but needed. But third, super important, that somebody needs to pay all of that. I can afford going to a nice place, have friends with me, whatever, but like there are so many people, they want a therapy obviously to be paid and not going to go to a coffee shop or a cannabis shop and whatever, do it alone, and they can't afford to pay privately for somebody sitting with them. But third, these therapies are incredibly strong, and that's why they're so beautiful. That's why they can make such a difference. By the way, we have nothing else in mental health. Mental health has become the number one problem of our time. If you look at number of patients, more than 1 billion people are in the statistics with a mental health issue, but because it's still a stigmatized disease, we're very sure there are much more people suffering from it than the numbers, than the cost and whatever. So because it's such an important thing, and nothing else helps, psychedelics are great, but they're great because they're strong. So, and I looked in the history of psychedelics because people were like, oh, look at the 60s, they gave it out like Smarties. I was like, that's the problem. The 60s were not a role model. And I was hated for that sentence, but I say it over and over again. The 60s were not a role model. Timothy Leary, created by his loose way and his non-diligent way, and he's like, oh, give it to everybody. He created the backslash. He's one of the reasons, amongst others, why it's illegal. All the other 10,000 years of recorded history of psychedelic use, and a lot of religions, a lot of practices are built on psychedelics, they did it extremely regulated. So my favorite example is always there is this Greek cult, or has been, the Eleusinian Mysteries. The longest lasting, more than 2,000 years, religion centered around psychedelics. And they did it super regulated. They were like twice a year with a priest together, forbidden by death, harder than the FDA, that you do it outside that framework. And I always said, I want to bring psychedelics actually back into society, but in a way how they have been treated over 10,000 years with care, with high sort of also respect for the power of psychedelics. But if done properly, in our case, because who are the shamans of our times, the doctors, the therapists, if done in a medical context, I think they have the power to change the world.
Through Apeiron, you invest in a range of, from psychedelics to Bitcoin to space lasers and longevity, which is, well, communication lasers, but it's better to say space lasers, right? But yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on your investment thesis. Like, how are all these things connected in your mind?
Yeah. So, at a very high level, I believe we live in the most interesting time. Like, I couldn't dream up a more exciting time to be alive, and hopefully alive for long. And I think in the next 20 years, we're gonna change with technological and medical innovation, both the world around us, the physical world, whatever, but also the world inside us, our body, how we age, hopefully not age, how long we live, how happy we are. Most likely we're gonna be smarter, whatever. We change everything, inside and outside us. And I know there are people are afraid of, and I think things can go wrong, but I'm an eternal optimist. I can see a future which is really great for all of us, where we're happier, healthier, live longer, can really follow our passion, whatever. And I want to be a small part in sort of creating that future. So that's sort of the overarching headline. We have 4 pillars. Biotech is still the biggest one, which is where I come from. I think biotech is just had a hard time the last 3 years. Also, if you look at the Atai share price, meaning biotech as a sector got obliterated. Yeah, because interest rates up, long dated cash flows, whatever. But biotech going to come back because it's such a valuable industry, and it's also such a fulfilling industry, because every time you succeed with small stuff, big stuff in biotech, you do help people with mental health, with cancer, whatever you work on. Like, sort of, I think biotech is just like is an obvious thing where you create the future. We focus within biotech on mental health and on longevity. Why? I think you wrote it in the article. I think it's just like the total addressable market is 100%. Like, which person would you meet which doesn't live longer and healthier, not just longer and healthier, and doesn't want to be happier? Like, these are the two big sort of dreams, demands, I would call it, like every human being has.
Yeah, everyone wants that. Yeah, to be happy and healthy. Yeah.
So then we have a pillar which is very simple, obvious, crypto and any crypto-related companies. I just believe in Bitcoin. There's almost nothing else. I think it's very obvious. Like, I think the world needs always a store of value, which protects the wealth of any individual of the greedy hands of politicians. If you look at the track record, every single government in the history of humanity, there's not a single exemption, has not ruined their currency. There's not a single currency where politicians, leaders, head of states over time, over the last 10,000 years, were prudent. Every empire, every war is often connected with ruining the currency. So this is why people instinctivly, since humans are around, we're looking for stores of value. And we have some which vanished again, from cows to I don't know, pearls, seashells, whatever, seashells, but like gold is the sort of the winner in that. So, but honestly, gold has no other value, more or less. It's a little bit of like
looks pretty.
Looks pretty, whatever. Like, the core value of gold is a store of value. By the way, what I just learned, maybe I say something but like, why? Because gold cannot be produced on Earth. So all the gold on Earth, and people seem to have known that instinctively. Gold is just being produced in a dying star. So all the gold on Earth has been seeded with comets somewhere, but it can't be made here. Never. We don't have the power to make it. So it's really
the alchemists tried that.
So it's really immutable. And Bitcoin is just beautifully both built on the reason why gold became the store of value, and just improved it because it makes it easier to transport it. You don't have the whole nature devastation by harvesting gold whatsoever. So. And I just believe we need it. So, and by the way, people are always like, but what's other use cases? There will be other use cases. We're actually working on one big use case, how we hopefully can improve the Bitcoin, how can we add on the Bitcoin network that it also can be used more efficiently for applications, whatever. But in the core, I think it's almost enough to be a store of value. And Bitcoin still is just, I haven't looked it up today, but like, it's round about 1/10 of gold.
Yeah.
So if Bitcoin just goes par with gold, I think it will exceed it. I have a 10x with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's my sort of long answer why I love Bitcoin.
Right.
And once you love Bitcoin, there is many sort of investments around it, from exchanges to data center companies, Bitcoin mining, and a lot of them morphed then into AI companies as well. So that's sort of that pillar.
Right.
Then we have a little bit of a catch-all, future tech, like from space tech to, I'm very passionate about novel foods, because I think a lot of the problems of the world, when we have a lot of them, because people sometimes hear me talking and say, oh, Christian thinks everything is rosy, whatever. No, there are a lot of problems, but I think technology will solve them, not like make them worse. So I think one is like I don't think there's overpopulation, but we need to think about how we can sustainably feed people, whatever. So I believe very much in lab-grown meat, fish, and all of that. So we have a lot of investments there, but it's this whole pocket future tech. And then we have a little bit of an antidote to these three, let's say, tech and biotech businesses, which we call happiness, leisure, and hospitality. The thesis behind is that I believe over the next 10 years already, very sooner than we think, the combination of AI and robotics will give every human being much more free time. And so we think, and by the way, I believe, equal or the same pay in terms of you get the same value in money, because I think otherwise we're going to have a revolution. So governments will either actively force companies to pay the same for much less work, or companies, by the way, doing it kind of already now. Like Jamie Dimon said, he might allow people like just to work 3 days and from at home and whatever, because they don't need that people, but companies feel instinctively, even if we could fire more, like we shouldn't, because like someone that's gonna blow up. But long story short, I believe people will have much more free time with the same amount of purchasing power. And that's why we invest a lot in companies which will help people make the most out of the time, from hotels, brands and real estate, to live entertainment, to content production whatsoever.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we let you go is, you've said in an investment memo that sports is kind of sports and celebrity is like the new cult, the new religion. I was wondering if you could kind of dive into that.
Well, it's what I just said is before the cult comes, like, it's like people will have a bigger share of wallet, which they attach or which they give to how to spend their free time. So anything what is already there, like sports, celebrities, whatever, which is kind of helping people to enjoy their life, just gonna become bigger. So I told you, like, if I could buy an index over the top 20 celebrities, I would buy it, because I think their value is gonna go up, because people are gonna spend more share of wallet on them.
Right.
At the same time, a little bit philosophical, I think we're kind of dissolving some of the original like ties of society, like religion, families, whatever, and we're kind of in a transition period where we're like and it happened before, like where we're replacing certain values with new values, and I think people need that feeling of belonging. Like, sort of religion has actually, I think, two components, or even not just any kind of community. You have, in the religion case, you have the supernatural or the spiritual part.
Yeah.
But if you leave that even out, like I always will say, not every person who goes to the church is very spiritual. A lot of them just like the community as well. So religions have also just provided for community, sticking together, whatever. And a soccer club at least fulfills that part. I deeply believe Taylor Swift, God forbid, no, I think she's a great artist. Like, on that one, it's not like it's political. Don't say anything. Swift, no, but I think she's a great artist. But I think that she's that popular, you can't explain alone with the quality of her music.
Sure.
I think this became a movement. This people, like, they call themselves Swifties. They want to. It's a feeling. It's like a community. It's an identity. And we dissolve so many other identities that I think sports, celebrities, whatever, replacing that.
Related to that, I've heard you say something about, immune system related to mental health. I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that.
Yeah, so talking about Taylor Swift as a very positive example, like, I was thinking a lot in the whole journey when we were working on psychedelics, like, one of the underexplored areas of research is, why do people get a mental health issue in the first place? And especially, why do people there are certain elements of the human nature we all have to go through. Nobody can prevent it. Like if life goes normal, your parents gonna die before you. Yeah, even if you're the best, hardest working person in the world, you're gonna have a hard time in the job somewhere. Yeah, you someone gonna be dumped by a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. There are gonna be these hard times, and while it's hard for all of us, some people go through it and just then someone come out of it, but some people slide into a mental health issue. That is at least one of the starting points of mental health issues. And the whole area is called resilience research. So I looked a lot into it, and my personal takeaway, it's not fully scientifically proven at all. That's a disclaimer, but I think it's a good point because that everybody can take it away for their own sort of daily life, and a lot of scientists I talk to say you might be onto something, at least in the way I put it, and I want to put in more research, is like I believe deeply that we have a mental health immune system. As we have an immune system in our body, which is fighting diseases or whatever, we have a mental health immune system, which is when we experience these hard times, making sure we go through it. And I believe it consists of three things. It consists of faith, purpose, and love, community. Let me explain. Faith is like, I think, even if we don't like to admit it, we need something transcendental, bigger in our life. And I mentioned it before, but I think it's important. Like, I'm very spiritual, and I think it's very, I always say, I don't know, I cannot prove if God exists, but I think believing in a higher being makes you a happier person. Yeah, so it's just a win-win. If God exists, you made it right. Like, if not, like, you at least had a better life. Yeah. Sure. But I thought, why is that? Like, and take you, like, you told me you have 2 children. Instinctively, and it's almost sad that we're not talking about it more in society, because that is pushing it sort of in your subconsciousness. You are worried about them every day. Yeah. Like, if your daughter is on camp, you're like, hopefully she's fine, hopefully nothing is happening. Yeah. And that constant nagging pain almost, or worry, yeah, is a risk and is weakening your immune system. While if you are believing in something higher, it's telling you you're gonna be all right, and even, God forbid, something is happening to the loved ones, whatever, you're gonna see them again somewhere, because there is a bigger reason for everything. And people, I think, again, I don't wanna claim higher being exists, but I think we need to be, we're wired to be religious, and it's good for us. Yeah. Second, people need purpose. We all wanna wake up and want to be part of society and want to know, to have some passion for something. Yeah. And third, the most important one, we are wired to be social animals. We want to have community, close family. So unfortunately, if I look at our societies, especially in the West, all these 3 things, faith, purpose, and love, are actually on the decline. Yeah, faith is obviously on the decline, but I think it's making us miserable. Then AI and robotics instinctively, or tells people, and even if they don't fully know what it is, the bus driver knows that most likely they're not going to drive the bus in 10 years because AI is going to drive the bus. So I think we see an erosion of purpose where people are deeply terrified because they think there is no place for them. I do believe there is a place, but we need sort of, always in periods of change, it's very sort of emotionally challenging. And then third, I don't want to make a political statement, but I think we're too much as society erode traditional family models. Like we don't have intergenerational families anymore, not a lot. Also, if I think I grew up, I had so many camps, community groups, whatever. So it's all a little bit eroding. Right. Yeah, and again, it's at the end, that's my personal explanation as well. While if we look at the hard numbers, mental health issues are incredibly on the rise. Yeah, and it doesn't make sense. If I look at the charts of depression, anxiety, whatever, and I wouldn't say what it is, and I would show you the chart, you would say that's an infectious disease. It's kind of spreading. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I think the underlying reason is that our immune system is weakening. I think we're a little bit instinctively holding on to things, like the Swifties, we're holding on to communities we can find, or you think older people, they might go to church more when they lost all of their family, whatever. So, but I think what are the messages I want to tell you, if you think about these 3 things, I think you can do things every day, which a little bit sort of help you keeping that. And then hopefully people that don't get mental health issues in the first place, when they do, I hope we someone soon going to have psychedelics. Which, by the way, last sentence, if you look at what psychedelics truly do, if I would describe it in a non-medical, non-scientific way, then they help you discover exactly these three things.
Right.
Almost every person who does psychedelics comes out of a trip and has some sort of spiritual idea.
Right.
They all learn more about themselves, and it helps them refine their purpose in life if they've lost it. And every single person, there's literally, and we've treated thousands of people, comes out and says the cheesy sentence, at the end it's all about love.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think psychedelics are so powerful to help with mental health issues.
Yeah. Well, great. Christian, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It was a great pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
In the cannabis industry, doing what you say and saying what you do goes a very long way. And so if 99.9% of the people aren't delivering and you are delivering on what you say you're going to do, it's pretty rare and people recognize that. I am Brian Gerber, CEO and co-founder of Horror Supply and Hemper. Horror Supply is a vertically integrated manufacturer in the pre-roll and combustibles industry, and Hemper is a consumer products brand that designs and develops smoking accessories. The company is composed of multiple different sites. So in our headquarters here in Nevada, we have about 60 people, employees, and then in our offices and our facilities in India, we have about 4,000 employees. We don't deal with a lot of regulations because we're non-plant touching. So I don't have all of the nonsense that a lot of the cannabis companies have to deal with, in the financing side and the payroll and the taxes and all that. So I get to have all the fun of being in the cannabis industry without all the headache. We launched June 1st, 2015. It was basically a subscription box with 10 items in it. And then 6 months later, we launched this kind of guest curated concept. Smoke like Snoop Dogg was the idea. We brought in a celebrity to pick the items, curated by them, and basically smoke like them as you're sitting on the couch for 30 days. And that catapulted the subscription box initially. And then about 16 months in, we started designing and developing our own smoking gadgets, and then we started releasing those through the subscription box as kind of like our own paid test market. And then we would take that information and data and feedback and go to distribution and retail partners and sell it into stores. Originally it was, how do I make your ritual easier, right? And how do you not have to walk into a smoke shop that, it's a terrible experience, it's like a bazaar, right? And the guy's yelling at you if you say the wrong words or whatever it might be. And it was just an awkward experience. Once we moved from the celebrity curated stuff to the more novelty theme-based products, what you see behind me here, that's when things catapulted even further, because if you didn't like Snoop Dogg or another celebrity, you weren't gonna buy into his box. But everyone loves UFO themed stuff. Everyone loves the rubber ducky, the Chinese takeout box. We actually have a full product development team here. We 3D print, we rapid prototype, we throw a bunch of darts at the wall and see what sticks. It's a team effort, right? We're all sitting down trying to figure out what's gonna make people's rituals easier, right? Or where is there a market void? Or where can we innovate on something? Or where can we duplicate and lower the price, right? There's only a few ways to go about it. But that's pretty much how it's done. It's, inception to prototyping to sampling to market demand, market fit. And something we've actually learned along the way is just because we think there is a market fit for something does not mean there is a market demand for it. Back in 2018, there was a massive shortage in the market, and basically there were no facilities producing enough cones. All the major brands were sold out completely with 6-month plus lead times. And so we got the opportunity to produce cones because there was a need for the market, right? And we just seized that opportunity. More people tried seizing it, but we were one of the few who figured it out how to do it right. And so it was a shortage problem. This whole market relies on China for all the packaging and other things. The problem is everyone believes that China is a low labor rate country. It has been low labor rate for decades. So it's hard to do a labor arbitrage in a country that's the labor rate's increasing drastically. So there's only a few places in the world where you could even accomplish this. India being one of them. If you're comparing like China to India, China's very much send me the files, I'll make it. India is send me the version from China and I'll make it. We went and created a lot of like foundational infrastructure there for this market, right? The whole cannabis side of the industry completely relies on China for packaging and goods and all different types of things. So we set out to basically get out of China and start bringing everything to India and start manufacturing most things there. So besides cones, there's like injection molding. We do like tubes there for pre-roll packaging and things like that. The existing market, we'll just call it basically these shacks or sweatshops, essentially is what they were. And we came in and wanted to clean up the industry and really create infrastructure for this market, which it really wasn't there prior. So we set out to become the most certified facilities in the world. So we're GMP certified, we're ISO certified, we're HACCP certified, we're FSC certified. And so what that allows us to do is basically we make cones in clean rooms, essentially. And we're able to work with Canada and Australia and Israel and all these different countries that have to be EU GMP certified to even purchase the product. So we're able to supply them goods where our competitors can't. Currently, we make about 100 million a month for the market. The pre-roll category is one of the fastest categories in terms of growth, so I don't see that coming down anytime soon. When it comes to manufacturing and supply chain, nothing goes perfectly. So even at our scale, we're producing billions of cones a year. There's hiccups, there's, COVID. Obviously, we didn't know what was going on when that happened, and so facilities, shut down for a bit, came back online. So it was kind of navigating just like the world, I guess, in that regard. But no, just manufacturing at this scale, you have to put quality control processes in place. We basically check every single cone that comes off the line, right? It's impossible to sell grade A cones to one customer and grade B plus to another, right? This industry is so tiny that like everybody talks. Big picture, I think we're entering into the consolidation phase. I think it's happening faster than everyone thinks it is. There is obviously going to be a descheduling here at some point, sometime soon for cannabis, which I think will yield much more capital coming into the market, which will yield the consolidation to happen faster. But I think it's a good thing, right? I think getting the bad actors out of the market makes sense. Getting more people who actually truly want to do good in this industry, right, makes sense. But in big picture-wise, I think we're going to be bigger than alcohol, 1 point bigger than tobacco, but it's still in, I'd like to say, cannabis 2.0. I don't think we're quite in 3.0 yet.